Not well. It's
Oh.
real. It's a really demanding diet,
Mm-hmm. But
but
like, do you feel
you know,
better?
uh, at some times of the day, yeah,
Okay.
I do.
Okay. So we're talking about the eco-anarchist manifesto, which made me so angry.
One of the coolest manifestos on the subject of eco-anarchism I could find.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, okay, so English is very clearly not his first language, so like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That said,
That said, he does make some pretty terrible points.
yeah. And also I find it like, when I first read it, just like the first article, he says like, as anglophone languages, you're basically not
Yeah,
intelligent enough to understand his like galaxy brain points,
yeah,
which at first I thought,
yeah,
different cultures have different ways of like relating to nature, and that also like expresses itself in language.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
could make a point that some cultures have different ways of looking at things, and not everyone is going to, that's not going to feel natural to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the way he made that point was just, yeah. Also, it never came up
Yeah.
again. Like,
And it never comes up again, and
no,
he never qualifies anything that he says later on in the entire piece with "this might come out incorrectly"
yeah,
or anything. He
no,
just he's just going for
yeah.
it. Just going for it.
Also, he sometimes like puts in German translations of the words, and they're literally just translation. Like they're not illuminating anything. So,
Yeah,
yeah, no.
yeah, yeah. And I know. So he explains at the beginning,
Hmm.
right, that Americans use two words to mean the same thing,
Hmm.
right? But then he proceeds to be completely unable to use context to define either of the one or two things
Yeah,
that he
yeah.
was referring to. So he had to go back to like strict translation instead.
Hmm.
And oh man,
The
it's
dictionary
it's terrible.
definition of.
It's horrible to read.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I actually took notes, and one of my notes is literally, "This article is making me very angry."
I went back and I
Hmm.
read it a second time.
Yeah.
Um, because I remember when I initially read it,
Hmm.
I was like, this is very similar to the type of rhetoric that I've seen used
Hmm.
to justify eco-anarchism
Yeah.
in other tendencies.
Hmm.
So I'm pretty far to the anarcho-communist perspective.
Hmm.
Uh, I have a fundamental disbelief in markets.
Hmm.
Um, something else that's fairly distinctly European about the way this is written
Hmm.
is that he's coming from a mutualist anarchist perspective,
Hmm.
which does involve some sort of market dynamic
Yeah.
at like a very local level.
Hmm.
Um, and so I was like, okay, well there is a valid point made in here. But the second time I read it, I'm like, oh man, this is terrible. This is actually bad.
Yep.
Like, there's so much more stuff in here that's just not
Yeah.
great. So I went back and I wrote down some of like the decent points that he tried to
Hmm.
make, and I found about 3 of them.
Oh, cool.
And I went through the terrible points he made, and I found at least 5
Hmm.
wholly just points.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so
And I mean,
I
it's
don't remember why I was so obsessed with getting this talked about, but
no, it is
I
like it
found
is
that,
interesting. It definitely is interesting and worth talking about. So
yeah.
also, I think like
So
what's really interesting is because for the last week we were talking about like eco-fascists and how they use sort of language that we as leftists would sort of agree with to make their
yeah,
terrible points. This is
yeah,
very similar. Like there's
yeah,
words in there and phrases in there that I totally like agree with. Like he keeps arguing for like decentralized non-governmental communities. Like yeah, that
yeah.
sounds great. But also he's talking about
So
like antinatalism and full employment, which like
yeah,
okay,
those are like red flags for me. Those are
yeah.
like, wait a minute, what? Like, slow down. He's talking about manipulating oil markets,
Hmm.
which like that for me is usually a red flag
Yeah.
because we'll get to the point later.
Hmm.
I have it written down. I wanted to
Excellent.
start with one of the decent points that he made
Okay.
though. It's in section 3, subsection B.
Hmm.
Um, sections 1 and 2, right? He makes some pretty valuable points here,
Okay.
which I can't believe it's written in this detailed a manner. Calm down, guy. For sure, calm down. But I do like
Hmm.
that he takes some time to point out that there is a difference between his principles and
Hmm.
what he's activating or advocating we do now.
Okay.
Um, I mean, he's wrong, but I do think it is. I'm grateful that he pointed that out
Hmm.
because it's a very common thread throughout like communist and basically leftist
Hmm.
history,
Yeah.
right? Is you end up with movements that use very distinct leftist rhetoric and then
Hmm.
say, well, that's what I would do, but what I'm actually going to suggest
Yeah.
is very different than.
Hmm.
Um, Lenin used this type of rhetoric quite a lot,
Yeah.
where he specified, well, communism doesn't mean all of that stuff
Hmm.
right now. And for right now, we're going to have goons go rob all
Hmm.
of the churches
Yeah.
and steal their money. Like,
Yeah. And we're gonna have a
so,
focus on the community, and the community is gonna focus on me.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. We're going to focus on the community and the goons that we send to your community
Yep.
to make sure that you're being anarchy enough. That's at least what it has shades of.
Hmm.
But I did appreciate him putting it in there. He
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
make a point.
Hmm.
The second good point that he made was point 11,
Okay.
right?
Which one was it?
And again, he makes
Hmm.
a decent point
Yeah.
about removing all of the structural hierarchy,
Hmm.
if not rank and grade.
Yeah.
And he makes a very valuable distinction between what he's advocating
Hmm.
for, ideally,
Yeah.
against he's basically arguing against the speciesism
Mm-hmm.
like centric piece that we read last time.
Yeah.
And so he makes a very specific distinction
Mm-hmm.
between not removing rank or grade,
Yeah.
so that he can still have the hierarchy of species.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting way to put this point. And again, it's a frustrating point as well.
Yeah. But I also find it so funny, like he has so many definitions and then like has abbreviations and does nothing with them. Like AIIFA principles. Like the first time I read it, I was like, ooh, okay. Also, he has like some, yeah, he's some ASO is an abbreviation he uses a couple of times, and I still don't know what it means.
Yeah. There's a point in here though where it gets into pretty much trash. It's subpoint E. Well, I mean, there's some shitty stuff in here.
Oh yeah.
But subsection E is 100% of anarchy, right?
Yeah.
The anarchist ideal, all this shit.
Okay, the negation of E is 100% anarchy. The
100% anarchy.
The anarchist ideal, and the negation of A, an insignificant anarchy, the anarchy degree greater than 50%, briefly defined state in the broad societal meaning. Is system.
So this part,
okay,
I read 8 times.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautifully, like, awesome. It's like, well, it's okay if we're mostly anarchists, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's literally all this says. Is basically it's a justification for proposals that increase the degree of anarchy, but not to its 100% anarchist ideal. He considers the actual establishment of the horizontal society a 100% ideal, and he's advocating for policies in the 50% range. And to me, this is a fundamental difference between two types of anarchists.
Yeah.
It's
because not as bad a hierarchy is still a hierarchy.
Yeah. And like, okay, do you have any idea how much of society 50% is?
Yeah.
You know, like in a lot of anarchist frameworks, 50% is like 2% capitalism, 15% government. Like, how much less government do we get in exchange for how much more capitalism? For how much less capitalism in exchange for how much more? That doesn't sound like a guaranteed fix to me.
No.
To me, this is, you have to tear it all down.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Yeah. Also, I mean, currently in the US, 50% of people are poor, so they are, of the, they are of the same class and rank. So basically, that's the system we have now, where 50% are downtrodden and 50% are above them. So basically, we live in an anarchist society. Good news, everyone.
Yeah. Well, perhaps we are like 52%. Very close to just half, which we'll get to later.
Okay.
Yeah. In the next point that he makes, that has some actual theory behind it that I've read, is in point 15.
Okay.
It's a little bit double speaky. Yeah. What is critical to grasp is the ecological interrelatedness of the world around us. All political, economical thinking must principally take the ecological perspective into account. We cannot just limit ecology to wilderness areas in academic papers. Ecology in general, and human and social ecology especially, say workplace environment, local, regional, and global environment, and resource management, must be an integrated part of anarchism. There will be no A, real anarchism without ecology sufficiently integrated, just market-oriented half-anarchism, and B, no real ecology without anarchism in a societal perspective, only authoritarian or pseudo-libertarian half-environmentalism, which is like That's a very good point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't see him justified anywhere else in the piece.
Nope.
He throws it out there. He makes a very good point. And then proceeds to argue for what we read in point 11.
Yeah.
Which is basically anarcho-capitalism or like pure on fascism.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
you could go either way with that rhetoric. But he does say it well.
Yeah.
Here. He just like never comes back to it. It's an interesting piece. Okay, do you want to talk about some really bad parts though?
Shall we start with the antinatalism?
Yeah. So
actually, all of point 6 is
Well, yeah, all of point 6 is trash. But this part especially is trash.
Okay, I'm just gonna. Okay, anarchism is political systems and organizations coordinated as anarchy in the above meaning and manner, but also the political tendency advocating anarchy understood this way, and the scientific knowledge of anarchy and the ways to reduce non-anarchist tendencies. Okay. Eco-anarchism. Eco-anarchism, i.e. green and environmental anarchism, is anarchism taking into account sufficiently the ecological perspective and questions facing mankind, socially, i.e. political and economical broadly defined, and ecology taking into account sufficiently the anarchist approach. Green anarchist policy is based on A. General ecological and environmental scientific knowledge, B. Decent treatment of animals for food, sure, C.
Sure.
C. Leave the world in a better shape for our children than we got it from our parents. Live and let live. Ecological variety. Polluting units are responsible for cleaning up. Ecologically produced food, recirculation of resources, birth control and optimal population, not maximal population. like honestly, every time I read birth control and optimal population, I put on a heavier German accent because that's just that's what they would. Yep. D. General skepticism vis-a-vis genetical manipulations, especially in a world based to a large extent on statism and plutarchy, as a research may, in worst-case scenario, be the basis for authoritarian dystopian hell societies, much more authoritarian or worse than George Orwell's 1984. We got a 1984 ding. Excellent.
A 1984 reference? Where did that come from? Okay.
Optimal.
That's not cited.
No.
He doesn't cite 1984.
Nope.
It just vaguely describes a hell society. Wait a minute, define hell society, because you defined everything else.
Yeah. and excruciating detail, but this, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, hell society.
Yeah, we all know what that means, obviously.
Okay. Okay, we all know that involving, to any degree, either the state or the market. Right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you result in a hell society.
A hell society. Yep.
Worse than Orwell's 1984. Right? So an optimal resource. No, this is like, and then he just moves on.
Yeah.
And then, like, I love the broadly and briefly defined that he qualifies every definition with. So what I love about this piece, when I get to about this point in the writing, so I'm like, I know exactly what he's trying to do here. And he's writing a dictionary. And he's doing a very poor job.
Terrible.
Of making a fascist dictionary. It's not fascist. It's mutualist primitivist.
Yeah.
And it is, that's a real political ideology that could exist. And it's trash.
Yeah.
And he calls it anarchism. I love it.
Also, like this.
It's called anarchism.
Yeah. Also, this like focus on scientific. Like, we're not being fascist when we're controlling people's birth rates. We're being scientific here. Come on.
Yeah. Like, relax.
Exactly.
Yeah. We have enough of you.
Exactly. It just so happens that the populations that we decide that you can't have children all have certain, physical traits that in common. That's
You know,
scientific. That's not
it's
just,
it's just
hold on.
convenient.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
because essentially one of the arguments is that they would be making is
Mm-hmm.
that to cut down on infrastructure to the degree that eliminates hierarchy,
Mm-hmm.
like people wouldn't survive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's the argument that sort of starts this type of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
right? The
Yeah.
concept of scarcity,
Yeah.
which we get onto later.
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, this is like establishing definitionally
Mm-hmm.
within his manifesto the concept of scarcity,
Yeah.
resources,
Mm-hmm.
and needing to descale.
Yeah.
So, like, degrowth
Mm-hmm.
is known to be one of those principles, almost almost is like markable as like belief in the state
Yeah. Yeah.
in terms of like, is this person an asshole? Yes, no.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
if they believe in resource scarcity such that we can't sustain our population or a much larger population,
Mm-hmm.
chances are this whole thing is going to be trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that, like you read out. That's what starts that whole genocidal trend.
Mm-hmm.
There are some worse anarchists that I wanted to include in this section,
Okay.
but I didn't look up any of their papers because I honestly it was frustrating. I was like, I
Yeah.
read this one twice.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
you read a lot of this. So then the next terrible point in here is point number 10.
Oh.
Okay. This reminded me of what I was doing, not last year, but the year before.
Mm-hmm.
I did like terrible rhetoric
Okay.
breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
So I would look up like a old piece of theory from
Yeah.
usually around the 70s,
Mm-hmm.
right, or the 60s, and I would poke holes in it
Yeah.
to be frustrated about it. And a couple of times, I did like Lenin.
Mm-hmm.
I did Lenin twice, I think.
Yeah.
And I've never seen someone type Lenin more effective than Lenin types Lenin. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, is that the debate me bro section? Oh yeah, best arguments win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Debate me, bro. Debate me, bro. A real scientific, non-dime anarchist way of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to a more or less metaphysical way
Yep.
of thinking. Like, wait a minute. Yeah, debate me, bro.
By real scientifical, we mean using the natural scientifical method broadly defined, thinking principally
Yeah.
and that hypothesis may be rejected, also taking into account realistic future scenarios related to different alternatives and actions, costs and benefits. A cost-benefit analysis of who gets to live is always super fun. Thus thinking, say, if this and that are the conditions and these are the alternative actions, what are the probable alternative outcomes? And then decide what actions are best, real democratic, i.e., what is in the interest of the less beneficial what is in the interest of the less beneficial majority of the population, the outcomes, and then decide what actions are best, real democratic. Wait a sec, no, we skip the line.
Yeah.
For the less beneficial majority of the population, the people versus the authorities and upper classes. Best arguments win, and to get competence effectively and fair through the system are benchmarks in this context. An efficient and fair dialogue in the public room, as indicated with free and matter-of-fact criticism, working horizontally and or from the bottom, the people and the grassroots upwards, is a must. To criticize the present proposals and situations without having a clearly better realistic alternative is quite useless. For higher degrees of anarchy, usually different forms of cooperatives and federalist, confederalist, libertarian, direct democracy, i.e. organized according to anarchist principles, are important parts of the economic political system.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is, and I quote from my notes,
Mm-hmm.
this is where he lays the groundwork for continuing our current systems
Yeah.
by calling for non-dogmatic or realistic plans
Mm-hmm.
and saying that to criticize without a clearly better realistic alternative is useless.
Yeah.
Do what I say or debate me, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
okay, cool. But he's laying these very specific, very dogmatic parameters
Mm-hmm.
before he'll invite you to the debate,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is the idea that our immediate advocacy has to be justifiable
Mm-hmm.
to what is going to essentially boil down to an economic proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like
Yeah.
it's just this status quo, like on these principles, when we're
Mhm.
not going to move anywhere ever, because you can't say, I think climate change is bad unless you have like the solution to climate change, which you're probably not going to have as one person.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's very frustrating to me because later on
Mm-hmm.
he's going to propose something, I wouldn't say horrendous, but very unwise.
Mm-hmm.
And very, no, I'm going to go ahead and say horrendous. Like, he makes a horrendous proposal
Mm-hmm.
casually.
Yeah.
Like, oh, let's just do this. And then
Is it the oil prices?
you read the rest of this and you're like, okay, you just wrote this whole dictionary,
Yeah.
fascism, and then proposed something horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
And like, this is anarchy.
Yeah.
The next part that like really, okay, he's not even like disguising it anymore, is point 17. It's very close to the end of the document. He's now out of steam. You see 17, 18, 19, and 20.
Yeah.
They're all very short.
Mm-hmm.
There's no more definitions.
No. No more prefixes.
He's thrown, he still says broadly defined every once in a while or something like that. But like, yeah, he's given up. He's going to say what he has to say about anyone who disagrees with him and is considering themselves anarchists.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Point 17. As indicated above, the eco-anarchist movement must not be mixed up with neo-Luddist, primitivist, or anti-civilizationist and similar groups or principles, i.e. typically oligarchist, authoritarian, and far from anarchist. The eco-anarchist movement has a rational, libertarian, socialist basis for its policy and rejects principally Marxian and other dialectical type ideology, New Age or Skippy and Disney, utopian-based animal liberation, vegetarian fanaticism, irrational environmentalism, and similar authoritarian tendencies.
It gets me every time. It gets me every time. Like, really, dude?
Yeah.
Really, dude?
The eco-anarchist movement is clearly opposed to and in general denounces in sometimes fanatical and irrational tendencies and guru hierarchies, say deep ecology, spiritual ecology, etc. We have seen within the ecology and green movement in general, as well as terrorism and oligarchy tendencies, sometimes wrongly called anarchist in the media.
Yeah.
Skippy and Disney.
So let's describe
Mm-hmm.
the organization that he's suggesting to put together. Right?
Yeah.
So first we have to understand what does he mean by neo-ludist, primitivist, and decivilizationist, right? Right at the beginning there. Okay. Pretty much everybody like takes issue with some aspects of some of those movements. But like,
it's just
especially combined with the proposals later. So a lot of the targets of his criticism here, animal liberation and spiritual ecology specifically, you're talking about, especially in like America, all along the Atlantic coast, like the entire New England area of the country is full of anarcho-communists that believe in this way and have written in this way for a very long time. And like these these tendencies of anarchism
Yeah.
are like equally that,
Mm-hmm.
if not more so, especially on principles,
Yeah.
right? These movements are more valid
Mm-hmm.
than what he's suggesting,
Yeah.
and they're being dismissed this way. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Yeah.
yes. And again, in coordination with his previous points
Mm-hmm.
about how, let's be realistic, we need an organization that has its foot in the market and in government.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so what are you actually advocating for? Degrowth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, I think his debate me bro is jumping out again because, like, all the movements he's describing are sort of like indigenous peoples and women, and like, you know, I mean, I'm not trying to say that like all women are into New Age, but those are more like the feminine.
Yeah.
How to say? Yeah,
Yeah.
feminine kind of movement, like more involvement of women and indigenous people, and you know, and he's just
Yeah.
like, nope, none of that. Debate me, bro.
And so
It's the market and the government. That's it. It's science, and the market,
science and the market. Yeah.
and debate me, bro.
And debate me, bro. It's just the market. Where
Yeah,
do you want me to
exactly.
go?
Nothing
You
we
stick
can
to
do about it.
economics, dude.
Yep. Yep.
It's like, okay. But like, yeah, you can definitely already get the impression from here
Mm-hmm.
that, so when you read a lot of old Russian propaganda,
Mm-hmm.
that's centered around race, because
Yep.
there's always this loud race debate in America,
Mm-hmm.
which boils down to, when you talk about history, was communist Russia less racist than America was?
Yeah.
And the question is, well, the answer is one, like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
to a degree,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't non-racist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is sort of the rhetoric that you would see from the 1920s communist government, 1930s communist
Mm-hmm.
government, when talking about race as well. So there would be
okay.
racial liberation movements,
Uh-huh.
and they were dismissed in this way,
Yeah.
except by the Leninites and the Stalinites. And that blew my mind. As soon as I read this, I'm like, oh my god. This guy is as anti-feminist
Holy shit.
as like old white men in Germany
Mm-hmm.
in the early 20th century of Germany
Yeah. Yeah.
were racist. And you're like, holy God, that is brutal to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it goes back to like his first point about like the Anglophones can't understand his reasoning. I think he just thinks he's such a fucking galaxy brain that no one, like literally women and indigenous populations and like literally anyone who's not, I don't know, I think Norwegian, like a white cis straight Norwegian man.
This then reminded me of a section of Twitter that I had seen briefly and like deliberately steered clear of.
Okay.
Around like 2017 or 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the Scandinavian eco-fascist.
What?
He called himself an eco-anarchist.
Oh,
yeah!
God, I think I've heard of him.
Community.
Oh shit!
No, there's a handful of them. Yeah, they have like a whole little.
Oh no, that's a
movement.
Whole
little crew.
Oh no!
People who were writing a lot of anarchist pamphlets in Scandinavia that were eco-fascists, but just framed as eco-anarchists.
Jesus.
And then you read what he's writing.
Yeah.
And you're like,
I see how that works now. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
I remember Lenin doing the same thing with communism. Yeah, he went straight, like he went just straight, like pure, clean fascist, like just full on industrial fascist.
Oh wow.
Which is the worst, but
yeah,
it's brutal.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about his appendix?
Yes, please. Appendix is serfdom was good actually.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we just read it in full because it's not actually the. Wait, okay. I'm gonna read like the first couple of.
Yeah, read however much you like.
Okay, so appendix: Environmental Economics and Anarchism. economics is a body of knowledge or a science that is that has certain theories. As, the people who talk about economics as a science are just like, oh, okay.
Now,
It
however,
has scientific principles, but people who say that economics like is STEM or some shit like that, like that's just
yeah.
come on, you're gonna
So
have to really show you're working there.
I remember discussing this in college all
Hmm.
the time when I was studying
Yeah.
economics and political science at the
Hmm.
same time. Um, as I was taking these classes, I would always make this same point. Like, okay, economics is not a science. What we call economics is one neoliberal interpretation
Hmm.
of resource distribution.
Yeah.
Um, it's distinctly not a science.
Hmm.
It is
I mean,
it's a description of sociological relations.
yeah. I mean, the thing that
Um,
really puts pay to that, like every time there's like an economic downturn, economists are just absolutely flummoxed. Like in 2008, they were just
yeah,
like could not believe it. In the 90s, when there was like the dot-com bubble, what? Nobody could see this coming. Like obviously,
yeah.
it's not a science if you're just so
Obviously,
completely fucking surprised every time there's a downturn, every 10 years.
yeah. Um, and everyone, the like 10 or 15 people
Hmm.
per 100,000 that do understand economics
Yeah.
as not a science,
Hmm.
right? I.e., basically the leftists,
Hmm.
right, are so much more accurate at predicting
Yeah.
when there will be downturns.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yep.
But he describes it here as a science that has certain theories, values, methods, and assumptions.
Hmm.
And it's like, it's a neoliberal science. That's a problem. We have to stop using that
Yeah.
because political economy
Hmm.
is what I always tried to argue about with people
Okay.
because it is a more complete science,
Hmm.
which is why the rest of everything that he has to say is garbage.
Hmm.
Because he describes economics as a science.
Yeah.
You know, you're wrong.
Uh-huh.
You're wrong on the base of it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
One goal of economics is to understand how to produce goods and services for society in the most efficient, Pareto optimal manner. This is achieved AOT, whatever that means, by having a better understanding of the human activities in a free okay.
Mm-hmm,
In a free
mm-hmm,
market system. Environmental economics is a distinct branch of economics that acknowledges the value of both the environment and economic activity and makes choices based on those values. The goal is to balance the economic activity and the environmental impact by taking into account all the costs and benefits.
mm-hmm.
The theories are designed to take into account AOT, pollution, and natural resource depletion, which the current model of free market system fails to do. This failure needs to be addressed by correcting prices so they take into account external costs. External costs are uncompensated side effects of human actions. For example, if a stream is polluted by runoff from agricultural land, the people downstream suffer negative external costs or externality. Sure.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, yeah. Okay. Sort of.
Yeah.
Yes. Environmental economics is designed to measure that, like, gray space.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah.
I can break on every word. I do every word.
I feel like a headache coming on trying to like follow
Oh
his
man.
thing. Okay, so and I always want to like to dismiss his points up front, and then I think no, maybe there's a point to
Yeah.
it, and then I come back to no, actually, let's just throw it in the
No.
trash as
Yeah.
is.
Like, this is he started on the fallacy.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to go debate me, bro, about that economics is a science. And so everything he's building here is like, okay,
Yeah.
so since economics is a science, we
Mm-hmm.
can use our current neoliberal understanding of economics
Yeah.
to measure the environmental impact that society has
Mm-hmm.
on, like, the planet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
As long as you're just using a free market system with no bosses,
Yeah.
right? Which, like, you're a narco-capitalist, but you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. because there's no boss.
Yeah, yeah.
And so like you're distinctly not
But
you're
he's also talking
anti-capitalist.
about employment, so there would be a boss. He just doesn't want to admit it because he
Yeah,
doesn't want to admit to
yeah.
being an ANCAP.
This is this is that point where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, if you're clocking in, who's paying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
we've got somebody in chat.
So it's like,
Hi, Victor. Okay.
so it's a very interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't open the chat for the first time.
Oh no. So okay. Next thing. The assumption in environmental economics is that the environment provides resources, renewable and non-renewable, assimilates waste, and provides aesthetic pleasure to humans and general environmental goods and services. These are economic functions because they have positive, negative economic value. However, traditionally, their value was not recognized because there is no market for these services to establish a price, which is why economists talk about market failure. Market failure is defined as an inability of free markets to reflect the full social cost or benefits of goods, services, or state of the world.
Mhm.
Therefore, when markets fail, the result will be inefficient and unfavorable allocation of resources. Since economic
Mhm.
theory wants to achieve efficiency and fairness, environmental economics is used as a tool to find balance in the world system of resource use, goods, and services.
Mhm. So he wants to use the markets
Mm-hmm.
to target 50%, like even basic,
Yeah.
like even resource distribution
Mm-hmm.
to everywhere,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Completely horizontal.
Totally.
He does not in any way describe the organization that would accomplish this,
Yeah.
except that it would use the markets.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, he relates this,
Mm-hmm.
I think later, after the weird economics math
Yeah.
segment that he throws in here without. Okay, we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
It's like logic math, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
not fun.
No.
He throws that in there, and this has not been that sort of
Mm-hmm.
manifesto so far, buddy.
Yeah.
To start discussing using the market to
Mm-hmm.
balance scarcity
Yeah. Also,
to 50%.
what I find really weird is that like he's been so all about the definitions and being really like scientific about it, and then he throws stuff out like fairness and social good, which is not at all defined and really nebulous,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah,
So,
not even, he
but
didn't even throw the broadly defined on it. At this
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Like I would have appreciated it broadly defined.
Mm-hmm. Like what is
You
what?
strictly defined
Yeah.
earlier.
What is considered efficient? What is considered fair? Like those are huge, huge questions that are not
Yeah.
at all
So
discussed.
what do you mean efficient?
Yeah.
Right. What do you mean by fair?
Mm-hmm. Like I mean, technically, it's efficient
is
to take the top of a mountain to get the coal out, but is that
Yeah. And like, okay, what is market fair?
Yeah.
Because all of these statistics that he's proposing using,
Mm-hmm.
because they're designed in a neoliberal way,
Yeah.
they are designed to undervalue resources
Mm-hmm.
that are required in some communities and not in others.
Yeah.
Right? Which is, I mean, he talks about externalities
Mm-hmm.
a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but he thinks that the externalities are, pollution, natural resource depletion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like basically climate measures.
Yeah.
Right? And not states of social development, or even in this case, which is like really blasphemous, he doesn't take into account state of market development on site. So like our current neoliberal economic measures are designed so that the cost of living in places like Colombia appear so low to this model of economics, right, that they can justify paying people $60 a month. Because economics isn't a science.
No.
It's a piece of propaganda that he advocates using here as a science in the most anarchist way possible, which means that he's going to fall in the same anarcho-capitalist trap
Mm-hmm.
that the ANCAPs fall into, except what he's actually suggesting in terms of the horizontal distribution goal,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the same as the anarcho-capitalist distribution plan.
No.
It is technically a more anarchist plan.
Mm-hmm.
And it should count as anarchism if the organization that accomplishes this
Mm-hmm.
it's specifically defined. And he does not do that.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't even broadly define. He just starts saying shit.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Throwing out
Yeah.
really broad terms without any discussion.
Yeah. Like scarcity, he didn't justify scarcity.
No. Oh, shall we get on to the idea of scarcity?
Well, okay. Yes. Let's get in order. Sorry, the whole thing. I can do every word.
Okay. Another basic term in environmental economics is the idea of scarcity. Historically, goods and services provided by the environment were seen to be limitless, having no cost, and thus considered scarce. And thus not considered scarce. Scarcity is a misallocation of these services, which are not limitless, due to a pricing problem. If resources were properly priced to include all costs, then the resource could not be overexploited because actual cost would be too high. This is a powerful tool in environmental problems, proper pricing. Macron just popped a stiffy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez. Like, this is literally what the Yellow Vest revolts were about in France.
Yeah. There's several problems with this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, there's so many problems. Oh, I can't even. Like, scarcity in general, like, at the foundation of it is, like, the assumption. So he justifies the fact that resources don't go where they're supposed to go is because the market is enough. And that it's the capitalist structure of the market in which people profit that makes these prices in balance. And if only we got rid of the profit incentive of capitalism, then the markets would be just fine to distribute resources.
Yep.
That is not correct.
What?
That's wrong. Not wrong.
Jesus.
Yeah. Basically. I don't know how else.
No.
Like, that is not correct.
The refutation of that is that it's wrong. Yep.
Yeah. Because theoretically, right, if this were accurate, then again, he's talking about there are very high resources in the European states that are, I mean, it's true, they are being collected, and that it would be unsustainable to continue to do that if markets were at 50 even. Which is like, that cannot happen within a market.
No.
It's very frustrating. You cannot be overexploited because the actual cost would be too high. The market literally self-regulates so that the exploitation is never too high. That's the whole point of capitalism. That's why there's a 1% and a top 1% of 1%. Like, yeah, you can centralize wealth that much.
Yeah.
And continue to justify it in a market as long as your original definitions of what's justifiable in a market are wrong. And which organization is making those definitions and what makes that distinction, well, that is going to get infected with capitalism because that's what it does. So they're going to centralize the resources as much around themselves as they can. This is why exploitation happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, very frustrating.
And I also find it really weird, like this, gap in his thinking where he doesn't want a government and doesn't want this and doesn't want that,
Yeah.
but he wants imposed
And he,
pricing. Like who's gonna
yeah.
do that?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like his example that he's going to get to.
Hmm.
I think we can skip his math.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, please.
And let's skip his reference to Garrett Hardin's Tragedy of the Commons, as though that's a foundational work that everybody should have read by now. Okay. Trying to read for the actual suing in court.
What court? Like without a
Yeah, which court?
yeah. Also, technically, that's the system we have now. Like, if a company pollutes, you can sue them. It doesn't do you any good, but you can.
Yeah, the nature of environmental commodities. Environmental commodities is not self-implied as a good thing because you like capitalist economics. Like, what? You have not justified any of this.
No.
The commodification of environmental products as what? No.
Yeah.
Distinctly bad. That's one of the foundational reasons that capitalism is bad, because it commodifies human time. Like, that's what? No. And then how is that regulated? Well, by the same body in which, if it's regulated poorly, you sue them.
Yeah.
At an anarchist court. We've been talking about international, like, economic relations. And now you're talking about anarchist court. So which anarchist court is going to be sufficiently authoritative to adjust international economics?
It would be decentralized and non-governmental. Like, who... How? Why? Also, why would the companies give a shit? Because at that point...
subsection E of this point.
Like, at that point, the biggest concentration of power lies within, like, international companies. So why would they give a shit about what, like, your local anarchist court says?
No, because you would call it like a union.
Oh.
You call it a union. Now you're just a union member.
Yeah.
And this is just your union telling you that the environment, the economy is self-correcting, and your union dues are getting hiked. And the brown ones are getting mad about us taking all the bananas again, so we have to go coup over there. So we're going to take some union dues for that too. Like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, foundationally messed up. Economics is a body of knowledge, a science.
Yes.
Here, let me use this science.
Let me read the science at the tea leaves.
Yeah. And at the end of the science, let's make some anarchist courts. What?
I would like, honestly, I would love to see the face of the Monsanto CEO when he gets, like, sued in anarchist court.
Yeah, no, I think we should just, like, convince everybody to, like, burn everything quickly.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of what we need. Yeah, this is hilarious.
Okay, I'm just going to read the last paragraph, which we get into proper serfdom. Okay. Some people, mainly engineers often, wrongly operate with rather fixed input rates of energy, say oil, in their models. Economists, on the other hand, operate with much more realistic law of substitution, i.e., the same job, say agriculture as harvesting potatoes, can be done manually, sustainably, with little or no use of oil, or with using a large tractor, which uses much oil, non-sustainable. Thus, we can substitute the use of large tractors and much oil in general with more manual labor. Thus, we will need more hands in the environmentally sustainable economy of than in the non-sustainable. Thus, there is no problem with full employment in an environmentally sustainable economy. By setting the price of crude oil via taxes, who's going to tax someone when there's no government? Okay.
Okay.
To about
Nope,
150
the union.
US dollars.
Union dues.
Yes. Okay, solar and wind energy become profitable and will be substituted instead of oil. This will force, say, the US economy to be environmentally sustainable. Development of fusion atomic energy will in the long run solve the energy problem. We're just going to have that last sentence tacked on there because obviously that's going to happen. I mean, hopefully,
No,
yeah,
yeah.
sure,
I mean,
sure.
obviously, nuclear power, cool.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, we don't have any questions about that? Okay, never mind. Last sentence, cool.
Yeah, yeah. Also, we're gonna have
Yep, we're done now.
we're gonna have no governments, but there's gonna be a U.S. economy. So United States is still around, just they aren't a government,
Yeah.
I guess.
No. The anarchist organization is not a government.
No. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a company. It's like a series of corporate.
It's an LLC.
Yeah. No, it's a union. It's like the IWW,
Mm-hmm.
like a full-on, like a union, except this union has the power to completely redistribute the market, which means it's bigger than any nation
Mm-hmm.
in the history of all nations. Because it's going to regulate the entire global economy
Uh-huh.
on pain of taxes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to achieve this the most optimal way,
Yeah.
which is, I assume, this guy's personal Patreon.
Oh, definitely.
Because that's where we're at.
I mean, we have to support him because the rest of us are going to be busy digging up potatoes.
And so we need people to dig up potatoes. So what are we going to do? We're going to reduce the amount of income, we're going to raise the cost of the U.S. market providing the income that is supporting the potato growers now.
Yep.
Right? We're going to destroy those markets
and
then force those people into literal serfdom to pick more potatoes to sustain the European economy.
Yep.
Because that's market balance.
Uh-huh.
Because it's so expensive to live in Europe, according to neoliberal economics.
Also, if oil is so expensive that you can't run agricultural machines, you probably can't run trucks to transport potatoes anywhere, anyways. So, I mean, we'll dig up the potatoes by hand and then literally put them on the back of someone's bicycle.
No, it's the transport union.
Of
the pilots have
course.
to fly day and night, and the truck drivers, Amazon style, they deliver at 2 a.m. And if they don't do that, then the market isn't sustainable and they starve to death.
Yep.
Because it's so expensive to bring in a potato to Germany.
If the international economic system is brought down by potatoes, I'm going to start laughing and never stop.
I mean, according to this, his assertion is it's going to be the logical conclusion is it's going to be so expensive to bring in a tomato to Germany.
Yeah.
That it's going to be too expensive to run tractors.
Yeah.
You can't even have tractors. You need pure, only manually grown, environmentally safe tomatoes.
It's a dude with a spade because everything else is not sustainable. So you're gonna have a mountain of potatoes by the side of a field.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the production line, I guess.
Yeah. No, because you have the union, and for that guy to afford his union dues, he's got to fly those potatoes to Germany. Yeah, that's what he's proposing. There has to be a Lyft driver 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Because without a guy who's gonna drive from Berlin south, the potatoes aren't gonna get there. It's laughable. This is just assumed on the basis of economics as a science.
Yeah. And then after a
I
long
love
day of digging up potatoes, you go home and you find a letter from the government telling you whether or not you get to have a child.
it's not the government.
Oh no,
It's
it's
the
the
union.
union. The union.
It's
Ah.
yeah, it's the Rate of Human Growth Union, and they operate by suing you in another union if you don't
Mm-hmm.
do what they say.
Yeah.
And crude oil is now twice as expensive
Mm-hmm.
in the Middle East. Like, wait a minute. Like, okay, I mean, Dubai sucks, but
Mm-hmm.
just not buying the oil does not fix that situation, buddy. That's a whole lot of people who suffer.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to talk about even market economics, which
Mm-hmm.
are like trash,
Yeah.
like,
Also,
that
yeah.
specific policy
Yeah.
is deliberate genocide in places like
Mm-hmm.
Venezuela,
Yeah.
right? Or
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the Middle East. Like,
Yeah.
we already know what the situation is in Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's going to get any better if you
Yeah.
raise the cost of oil by
Yeah.
2 and we stop buying it? What do you
Mm-hmm.
think they're going to do?
They literally like
Like,
killed 4,000 people just building football stadiums. They're not really gonna, you know.
like, wait a minute. Okay, I get the argument. Okay, so stop giving them money.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But also, who would
Cool.
enforce that? Like, Dubai doesn't
Yeah,
give a
but who
shit, you
enforces
know.
it?
Like, who, you know,
Like, are you
you rock
expecting?
up in Dubai and telling them like, no, your oil is going to be 15 times more expensive now, and no one's going to buy it, and you know, full stop. That's the end. There's nothing you can do about that. What?
Yeah, who's gonna like double the price of oil? Who's gonna set that tax?
Yeah.
Because like you're talking about, what is this gonna be, economic lobbying?
Is it going to be just
Like,
like
it's
a world government, some sort of like?
like, the how does the union set that tax?
Mm-hmm.
Who does it get paid to?
Yeah.
The union? Wait a minute. So what's the difference between a union and a government again?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the government is vertical and the union's horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but it's collecting taxes right now.
Yeah.
And these taxes are going to inspire people to pick potatoes by hand and fly them overnight to Europe. Wait a minute. How is this being balanced? I don't think.
But if you have any problem with the system, debate me, bro, and don't point out any problems with the system unless you have a solution. That's, yeah.
Works within the system.
Yes, exactly.
Unless your answer system functions within the system, I don't want to hear about it.
Exactly.
And it's like, I don't know. Like, compared to this,
Mm-hmm.
pitchforks, dog.
Yeah, yeah.
This is real bad. Yeah, the first time I read
Mm-hmm.
the first set of points that I pointed out,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those
Yeah, yeah.
those three, the ones where he points out how
Mm-hmm.
sort of, where he's starting,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, there's a lot of argument that is
Mm-hmm.
made along these lines, and somehow it always ends up being like anti-feminist, anti-vegan,
Mm-hmm.
very violent
Yeah.
political, like, state manifesto.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah. And like the word cooperation, I think never even appears in this thing.
No, you're right.
Like.
No, you're actually right. He doesn't say the word one time. I told you I can go word for word.
Like for an anarchist to never once in his entire manifesto mention the word cooperation is
No,
what?
there's a, yep.
Oh,
It's at the end, after point 20, right before the appendix.
okay.
The eco-anarchists were and are in the front line in the fight against acid rain and holes in the ozone layer. All right, so
Okay.
that's just context.
Mm-hmm.
That's our rhetoric level.
Uh-huh.
We are at full rhetoric. This is pure rhetoric.
Yep.
Pure ideology, as it were. The man-made global warming is now at the top of the agenda for anarchist direct actions to save the global environment. The single most case is the fight against man-made global warming. Regarding the struggle against man-made global warming, the eco-anarchists are at the forefront. and demand joint international cooperation to solve the problem. Period. End of story.
Holy shit.
What?
That is okay. Okay, either eco-anarchists are a much larger movement than I previously thought, but
Yeah. Yeah. Who is demanding what?
yeah.
Which union is this?
These three
this our
weirdo
real-
Norwegian guys are gonna rock up at the UN or something.
Wait, I mean, so by joint international cooperation, what does that mean? Were you like pro Paris Accords? Is that what you're saying? Like, is that the degree of international cooperation you're discussing? Because there are a lot of very valid tendencies that suggest that that's nowhere near enough for the next 6 years. Like, what? There's a deadline. What is international cooperation? Like, yo, Turkey invaded somebody. Yes.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? We're nowhere near demanding that.
Nope.
There's got to be a different solution. This is great, though.
This is amazing.
That's the only time in this entire manifesto co-op is mentioned once.
Yeah.
That's number 1 of 1.
And also, very tellingly, he's asking other people cooperate with them, not they with,
Yeah.
These,
well, no,
yeah.
It's
the anarchists are in the forefront, and everyone else can.
International organ. It's the Green Anarchist International Association. Is the organization that he's representing.
Yeah.
I think. Yes. Yes. That's his. This whole 20 points, right, is to justify point number 20, right? The establishment of this organization that he is suggesting and obviously would be in charge of. Yeah. This is the single most important case.
Yeah.
Right? And he's always going to demand for international cooperation. He wants to be the start of an internationally relevant non-governmental organization, essentially market union, which is a company. But we'll discuss that later, or maybe in a different episode. We'll discuss why a union is basically just a company, especially within all of this market terminology. Like,
yeah.
Okay, cool. You made a market body act on behalf of all people because they efficiently can force them to pick potatoes as fast as everyone in Europe can eat them for no cost. Okay. That's a con.
Honestly, I kind of wonder why that guy calls himself an eco-anarchist. He could just, he could just be an ANCAP. He could just be an eco-fascist.
No, he is a mutualist. This is sort of what it feels like to me when I hear the difference between a Leninist and a Marxist-Leninist, right? When you make a very specific distinction between the rhetoric of Marx and the rhetoric of Lenin. This is like anarcho-capitalism, but technically it's mutualism.
Yeah.
He says all of the mutualist things. So this is more of the Lenin level than the Stalin level of anarcho-capitalism. Technically, this counts as communism.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Technically, this counts as anarchism, based on definitions, which it's not. It's distinctly mutualist. But also there's this secret hidden union that you don't mention one time.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be there.
And it's all organized horizontally, but we're also going to impose taxes.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Cool.
He doesn't define this organization because if he had defined this organization, he would realize very quickly that this is No. Yeah, it's like specifically defined mutualists
Mm-hmm.
and broadly defined fascism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like how I stole this terminology there. That was a complete accident. I like it.
This article is amazing.
It's a great article.
It's
It's a
brilliant.
great article. And like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
he's using mutualist rhetoric and calling that good enough to be anarchist.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know a lot of people who do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He basically got out
I
of
don't know if you've.
Thesaurus and like translated fascism into anarchy. It's brilliant.
Yeah, 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 and just replace the state with the union.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, this is just fascism. I don't know what you. I guess it's the state in fascism that they end up doing it with. I can't remember the fascist rhetoric that much because I didn't bother reading most of it. I read a little bit of Hitler one time and was like, you know what? I'm good.
Yeah, that's enough. Yep.
I'm good. Like, there's actually nothing in here.
Mm-hmm.
This is as much of fascism as you need to read.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except he doesn't like specify that he's going after the brown people. He just
Nope.
sort of throws an oil tax in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's going to solve the global climate crisis, obviously.
Sure.
Quick oil tax. Boom, got that. Step number 2. Union dues. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
It for a long time, I was an anarcho-syndicalist.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very hard line. Like I was convinced, not necessarily of a market relation, but of like an efficiency relation between a series of unions whose purpose it was to organize and ensure that everything got done.
Okay.
Because I got into anarchism thinking about literally the most efficient ways to distribute resources on the planet. And I was like, yeah, obviously you would have like some sort of a global network of unions who would ensure that there were people filling roles and you would incentivize that. Ooh, how would you incentivize that? Because you need a commodity to raise or lower the value. And like this guy commodified the whole environment.
Oh yeah.
Like, how could you commodify like, labor? This guy's like, yeah, so we're just going to commodify water real quick.
Oh yeah.
We'll calculate how much water picking a potato is worth. And how much water does it take? Well, obviously, in Scandinavia, water freezes, so more water. Like, okay, well now we're already back in normal market relations.
Yep.
Status quo. Or fascism. Love it. Every time. Every time. They fall into that same trend. And obviously our organization is going to do this crazy big thing. Your organization's fascist. But okay.
I always kind of wonder whether he knows he's a fascist. Like, is this dog whistling? Is he like trying to recruit, or does he like? Okay.
No. He believes he is a mutualist. That mutualism retains market contradictions that fall into fascism. Is an argument they disagree with.
Oh, okay.
Right. They are technically an anarchist tradition because of the horizontal union.
Yep.
Sort of like how the ideal Marxist state is a communism. Because of like the idea that every community would have its Soviet, right? And then all of these councils could often create a thing. And this thing, in their case, it was a government, right? Always has the authority to tax them and distribute their resources. And then inequality is written off as debate me, bro. This is just the most realistic situation for resource distribution because it's so expensive to get avocados that like the cost of an avocado is so high
Mm-hmm.
in Germany. What the market says. So we
Exactly.
need to import our avocados.
Mm-hmm.
And the cost of avocados is so low in Mexico. Like, obviously, we don't have to pay you for these
No,
avocados.
of course not.
They're
That would be
basically free.
ridiculous. Come on.
It's so easy. It's so easy to get avocados.
Yeah.
That's just the market, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just market being balanced. It's just this is how resources flow. The
Yeah.
avocados come to me,
Our hands are tied.
and
We
the
would like to
tractors.
pay you for your avocados, but that would not be scientific. That's, I'm sorry.
Look, we'd buy you tractors and advanced irrigation systems and power plants, and
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of construction equipment and an entire set of human infrastructure. Uh, except that's not really environmentally
No, no,
realistic.
no, 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 no. Yeah.
The way the environment is right now, we have a
Mm.
checking and a savings. And the economy says the most efficient thing is for you to pick all of the avocados by
Yes.
what? What? It's just the market, bro. Depend
Yeah.
me. Yeah, that part though is not. He won't believe that.
Mm-mm.
He'll believe that the organization can actually keep it anarchist, that the union will work,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not a government.
No.
And theoretically, it would be organized horizontally somehow. There's better theory out there. He doesn't justify it, so I'm not going to give him credit for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to need to see your bibliography before I give you credit for having read any of the good theory about mutualism, and not just sort of Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, I feel like, yeah, this is just fascism,
Yeah.
and that's not the fault of mutualism.
Mm-mm.
It's the fault of this guy being a fascist and just like Googling mutualism and putting it in the source.
Yeah.
I love it. And the cost to the Middle East of like destroying the U.S. market for oil.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. Oh my god. And like, okay, but what happens when the organization that set the taxes needs crude oil?
Mm-hmm.
Because like we still use that resource. So like, what happens when you have a cargo ship of like Ferraris that you had built in China because the market?
Of course.
And like, okay, well that ship needs to move. It's on oil.
Mm-hmm.
Man, oil's expensive. We can't really afford the oil that we need for our fleet of Ferraris.
But then
How
it's
do you?
then it's mutually agreed that either you give us the oil or we bomb you. That's
Yeah,
mutualism.
I mean, I think that's how it is. You have to give it to us.
Yeah.
Wait. Yeah, no, we need oil.
Then we
We have oil.
cooperate. We cooperate that I get oil and you get nothing.
That's how the market works.
Yeah,
Bro.
yeah.
Like,
That's
I don't think
efficiency.
capitalism is gonna get you there. I feel like at some point there's gonna be a revolution against whatever you call your thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna call it fascism.
Yep.
It's not fascism. It's
It's
a collapse.
not technically. Yeah.
I mean, it's just a void authority. So I guess just fascism.
Mm.
Yeah, it's gonna collapse into fascism. This is fascism.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna collapse into fascism very quickly.
Yeah.
It's eco-fascism.
Yeah.
It's anarchism.
Also, especially like one of his first points was the anti-natalism. Like he brought that up before any
Yeah.
basically anything else.
Right?
Yeah. Like he had a bunch
Yeah,
of definitions and then said, yeah, we're gonna control who gets to reproduce and who doesn't.
Yeah. Birth control
Yeah.
and optimal population.
Yeah.
Right there, I see it. 0.6. Yep. I remember that very clearly. Like we get to distribute the population.
Mm-hmm.
Union dues. What? Wait a minute. That doesn't sound slightly problematic?
Mm-mm. No, that's fine. It's totally fine.
Eco-Anarchist Manifesto. There are a lot of people who have read this,
Uh-huh.
or at least read things like this, things that go along the same road.
Yeah.
And I found a lot of them when I spent some time in theoretical discussions with Finnish anarchists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to be fair to them, I
Uh-huh.
never effectively argued that should that organization, that union exist, it
Mm-hmm.
would be anarchist technically.
Mm-hmm.
All I can argue is that there's a fundamental flaw in economics, and I'm not quite qualified enough on neoliberal economics to have the argument and point it out in their language.
Yeah.
So technically, yes, it would be anarchist
Uh-huh.
until someone does that economically, and I'm not going to.
Yep. Oh God, I
All I'm
had,
going to say is
yeah.
it is significant anarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, yes, that's what I
Yeah.
was going to say.
Yeah.
It is significant anarchy, point 11.
Mm-hmm. I haven't
He
even
said
read
all
that.
of the things.
Yeah.
He
In the
said
notes at
all
the
of the
very beginning, it says unanimously decided by Gaia, Green Anarchist International Association, on the 20th anniversary in 2002. So this is not just one guy sitting in his basement. This is like an
No,
actual organization. Holy shit.
yeah, 1982.
Wow.
I think that's what I read. Yeah,
Huh. Jesus. Okay.
yeah, yeah. Think about that. Think about that.
I'm very
1982.
happy about that.
So there's, but the thing is, right? This
Mm-hmm.
organization has been putting out this propaganda since 1982. It's 37 years of this out there.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly in Scandinavia,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this organization was probably part of a much broader trend
Yeah.
of organizations
Mm-hmm.
that are essentially just propaganda producing orgs. And I don't know what the payoff is. But they're usually just websites like this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of activity of their members on forums
Mm-hmm.
trying to spread essentially this perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, those exist. And this is one of them. And a lot of people have read this and they spread it relatively effectively.
Mm-hmm.
It's ecofascism,
Yeah.
except called anarchism.
Mm-hmm.
Hello? 37 years.
Yep.
You know?
That's amazing.
37 years. And nobody's been able to like tell, hey, y'all shut up.
Also, it's not even like, I'm terrible at theory. I haven't read much theory. I'm really bad at debate me, bro. And even I can
Yeah.
see that this is fascism. You know,
Yeah.
like
No,
how they didn't. They're an organization. How not at some point someone raised their head and said, guys, are we the baddies? Basically, that they never had a moment while debating antinatalism to go like, is this kind of fashy or is that just me?
it's just me. You should debate me, bro. You're not being realistic. All right. Well, that's not realistic. Wait, what? What does that mean? Yeah. Holy cow.
Hmm.
It's very bad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it. This is a 37-year-old organization.
Hmm.
Maybe it's just like one guy at this point.
Might be.
Like, and you just so happen to have the title to the organization. How do you?
I mean, I can't imagine that this like this document is edited. Like just the way that the commas
No,
are
this was.
sprinkled quite liberally. So this is definitely written by one guy without any
Yeah. Let
input.
me. I tried to do this at home. I'm looking up their website. Oh, nice.
Oh,
This is going to be lovely. I'm going to send it to you in Skype.
is that the
We're not going to
anarchy.no?
read. Yeah, that one.
Oh, Jesus.
This is that guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Literally, 2002. This was created. This is the organization. This is its. This is its records, activities since 2010. Yeah,
This is amazing.
yeah.
Oh, links.
Oh, links? Wait, I didn't see the links.
At the very bottom, there's a thing that said links.
Oh no! I didn't get that far. Last time I saw this,
Hmm.
I like just was scrolling through their direct action. It's a fascinating report on like years of direct action that's just like logged on here and then like dismissed entirely.
Oh.
So like
Oh, they have a ranking of countries according to libertarian degree, etc.
yeah.
Anarchist
So
search engine powered by Google. What?
it's a Google Doc. Relax. It's okay. Wait a minute, I have to see it. I have to look at it a little bit closer. Hold on, let me open up Skype. Really? How big is this organization? Because it's so in 2014 they were
Hmm.
at the between 2012 and about 2015,
Hmm.
from what I can see here. Maybe the like colors changed and I don't see it again here. But they were at the conference of the parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change.
What? Is that
So
like,
like I speak this language. Yeah. So
is this like a public
conference.
meeting and they were like in the audience? Or?
Yeah. So this was like a forum,
Uh-huh.
right? This was like it was a conference. So if you
Okay.
think about like a tech conference
Hmm.
or anything like that, where
Yeah.
a bunch of people go and they make speeches,
Hmm.
um, right? Apparently, they were invited to speak between 2012 and about 2015 is the last one I see.
Hmm.
Um, and apparently, this conference,
Yeah.
if you read like, I'm gonna Google it quickly because it's like an actual like it was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've been doing these conferences for a long time. And apparently, this organization, whoever it is,
Hmm.
um, was invited to like 4 or 5 sessions of this
Oh
conference,
boy.
dating back to like 2012. And then somehow it culminates with the Paris Agreement, right?
Uh-huh.
This says it's a direct action that culminates in the Paris Agreement.
Okay.
That's literally that's sort of what the bottom of this direct action segment says. This is like our organization was part of the UN thing that created the Paris Agreement. Like it's a conference, dog. I don't know how you got 5 invitations.
Yeah.
Who
But
gave you those?
maybe it's one of those things where you just have to sign up and they take all comers.
Yeah, no, like so. I've spoken at a few conferences
Hmm.
before. There are conferences usually more on like social change and like
Hmm.
racial advocacy specifically.
Okay.
And like literally all you have to do is know somebody who's
Hmm.
organizing at the conference and get put on the list of speakers,
Oh, okay.
right? So this guy knew
Hmm.
somebody at the United Nations Framework Conference, like the Climate Change Framework
Hmm.
Conference, which is that's like if you're an environmentalist, that's
Yeah, yeah.
pretty big.
Yeah.
That's a big deal back in
Hmm.
2012.
Oh, absolutely.
And they wrote some great reports
Hmm.
that came out of this whole conference. And this guy may not have ever said a word.
Well,
It's in their direct action segment, though. Good job.
yeah.
Good job. The UN's good now. We're cool. I feel like that's another neoliberal establishment that we could yell about for hours.
Oh God, yeah.
Like,
I'm just like really, really that manifesto. I was kind of like, because it's so clearly written by one guy, I was kind of happy because it's just one guy and whatever. But the fact that this is actually like may have influenced like policy, that's kind of
no,
scary.
it has not.
Okay, good.
It has not.
Okay.
He got a pass.
Hmm.
He got a pass to a conference he
He
shouldn't
had a
have been.
lanyard. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe whoever wrote that has been in university for long enough
Hmm.
that he knew somebody who could get him a lanyard.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, there's the
And
Paris
yeah.
Agreement was and is a neoliberal, like it's a deliberate like stall tactic
Hmm.
amongst like public sentiment
Yeah.
to try and stave off climate riots.
Hmm.
It's not like this isn't something that an anarchist would really be that proud of.
No.
I mean, I advocated for it at the time,
Hmm.
but like, it's not going in my direction segment. I wouldn't have gone to there.
Hmm.
I would have put so much effort as to vote on a ballot, maybe, I guess. Paris Agreement, yes, no. Sure.
Yeah. Why not?
But it's like, yeah, this isn't part of my platform.
Hmm.
And then if you look at the most recent thing on this website, right?
Wait, where are you? Sorry, what?
In their direct action segment, it's about 2/3 down the paper where you get to,
I'm
it's
seeing
got like the
system
yellow
theory.
headers.
Okay, no, I'm not on that page at all.
Hang on. I will share. Huh? Is it working?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So this part. Their support network for Greta Thunberg
Ah,
is established today.
oh,
That's
cute.
listed in their direct actions. I don't know. I don't know what this is though,
Uh-huh.
because it was established in September, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the format of. Is he going month day or is he going day month?
I would say day month in
Day month? Yeah,
September.
so
Yeah.
that's September. Yeah.
Also, is the
So,
Greta Thunberg support network just, people yelling online
I mean,
at
that's what
people
I'm
who...
trying to like Google now,
Hmm.
and I cannot. I'm not going to go too deep into each of these articles,
Hmm.
but all I can say is that Google's doing that thing where you Google something and it's like, is it missing this word?
Yeah.
Right? So GAIAs,
Hmm.
and there is no match with anything containing support, network, and Greta Thunberg
Hmm.
in the same sentence anywhere on Google.
So I'm going to assume that the Gaia Greta Thunberg support network is literally just that guy going on Twitter and yelling at people.
Or Reddit.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, that could be Reddit based.
Yeah, there's not even like the option to like, do you want to show only things that
Mm-hmm.
include it?
Yeah.
To like specify for you. It doesn't exist. This whole organization. Like, I've never heard of them. This is wild. I love that. It's got a whole direct action. Should I be putting the conferences that I snuck into on
You definitely should. I'm also going to put a lot more stuff on my CV because apparently, like, it doesn't matter. Like,
I went to a lecture on quantum physics once.
Ooh.
I shouldn't laugh at a UN conference. That is a cool thing to be able to.
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
I don't know how you did it. Probably 37 years.
Mm.
You probably met a guy.
Yeah.
But when I was reading this manifesto,
Mm-hmm.
it did remind me of, I have tattoos. Oh, I should probably stop screen sharing. I lost the button. I have tattoos on my.
Oh, cool.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're of math. And I had them printed in a specific way. It's in
Mm-hmm.
Times New Roman.
Okay.
Sort of like, I wanted like a basic text that you would see on a computer screen
Mm-hmm.
because I taught myself most of this math on two
Yeah.
separate occasions.
Wow.
And the way most people in colleges crammed from books,
Mm-hmm.
I had to cram from the internet.
Yeah.
Especially the first time to learn. I went to the Navy for
Mm-hmm.
nuclear engineering, and to learn the math, get me into that program,
Yeah.
I had to like learn some calculus and
Yeah.
some like particle physics, like
Holy shit.
in a
Yeah.
couple of months because you have a test coming up, and if you fail the test,
Oh
like
my
you're a
God.
fraud and you might get demoted out
Uh-huh.
of the Navy.
Holy shit.
Yeah, very strict. Like
Yeah.
the military is the fascists that like we've been reading about. They just are that. Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
And so,
I know
like,
it shouldn't surprise me that the military is quite rules-based, but still.
yeah, yeah, and it really is like it finds a way to justify within its own specific framework
Mm-hmm.
why forcing you to cram basically hours of Google
Yeah.
down your throat to learn this quantum physics real quick, when at the end of it, what they're teaching you is more about like how to solder a wire. Like you
Okay.
don't. The reason you go through that learning process
Mm.
for the military is to subject yourself to them telling you to do it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Mm.
the realization I made while I was in. Yeah, so the way I got my tattoos
Mm-hmm.
formed was exactly how I'd always read
Yeah.
on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And the way this guy wrote his manifesto is exactly how he's always read all theory, which is through some white dude's like dictionary
Yeah.
textbook.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly Purdue, it looks like. But at least he wrote well enough that I can identify where his crappy theory comes from.
Yeah.
It's not, Purdue's not crappy. Purdue's good. Sort of like Henry David Thoreau,
Mm-hmm.
who's like, he's not bad,
No.
except like, you know, he did advocate for letting poor people on goat farms just like starve, because that's
Oh,
like
okay.
nature. That's like nature running its course.
True.
And it's like, true.
Technically, not incorrect.
I would call it inefficient resource.
Someone should put a tax on that.
Someone should tax that. No, they have to tax the sun. Shines down south for.
Otherwise,
So
it's a
that's
market failure.
Yeah, so they're not going to starve. The market's
No.
just going to take that from where there is food.
Genau.
Just down south. Well, how are you going to pay the people down south? Well, the market.
Yeah.
Isn't that
No.
demanding? Oh, boy.
Cost of living is very low. I mean, it's not zero, but it's very low.
Oh, man. Every time I even think about this,
Mm.
I get another wave of it. I love this thing.
Yep.
How did he get into this UN conference?
Yeah. I mean, very likely he just like knew a guy from uni.
Yeah, hang on. I'm gonna send you a picture in Skype this time instead of screen sharing.
That's a lot of. What is that ceiling?
Yeah, he was here.
Oh wow. I don't know why I'm looking at it so intently. I'm like doing a Where's Waldo of a guy who looks like the kind of guy who wrote that manifesto, but so far I'm not seeing him.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to see like a hippie. I want to see like the full-on dreadlocks.
Yeah.
No, he's not that because he has like he has a Gucci suit.
Definitely. And he's got that like Martin Zellner haircut. Absolutely.
I'm trying to get a good picture of the crowd that was at the 2014 or 2015? One of them, there was like a very big like Obama-y crowd at. like he made a point of like
Mm.
I don't know if it was students or what, but there was a whole hypeness when it was time for the American statement
Hmm.
at this UN conference that's run by America, essentially. Like, who do you think paid for those screens, dog?
Yep.
Those screens are dope. Yeah, how'd them get there?
Mm.
Look at this whole conference that you're at. What do you mean resource distribution? Everybody's got a laptop. Look at these lights. Like, where's the power for those lights coming from? Is that an oil plant? Is that natural gas? How is this place heated? What is this organization that you're at? And why are you proud to have been there?
How did you get all these people from all over the world to be in one room? It's almost like there was some sort of like travel involved there, maybe.
No. No, because we're gonna double the cost of oil. Like, did I get a laugh? Because were you allowed to speak? And let you talk? Because I cannot believe that someone who wrote that would be allowed to speak at one of these.
No.
After they wrote that, this
thing's like 2002, so by 2014, like this is out there. This is.
Yeah. Your organization is from 1982. How is it possible that like 32 to 35 years after founding the organization, you're at this meeting with that manifesto? Wow. How are you affording the lifestyle?
Yeah.
Because like Marx, we know mooched off his buddy, who was like a bourgeois. Like,
who's that guy's Engels?
Engels,
yeah.
He mooched off Engels and like just lived as a bourgeois. Who are you mooching off, Doc? That you get to go to this conference.
I worked some.
I used to want to be this. I
Yeah.
want to be genuine. Yeah, that's why I went for political science. Because I used to want to go to the UN and like negotiate for things.
Yeah.
And I was like, I realized somewhere in between calculus and like my first international relations class, I was like, oh, this whole thing doesn't add up. Like, this doesn't math.
No.
This won't work. This market thing, definitely not.
No.
I love this. We were at this 4 years in a row. What'd you do at the conference?
Yeah. And I mean, I used to work like conferences as a cashier, just like selling tickets. And I know there's a shitload of people who just like walk in just because they don't have anything better to do that day. Like literally sort of like retired people who like want to keep their hand in. And so like being at a conference does not actually say all that much. Still, to let them come back is kind of...
Maybe a booth. Like, so I went to the Consumer Electronics Show and like I would equate to be putting that on his website. So like say I was there. He had to at least have had the equivalent of a booth.
Yeah.
Right?
Or give a talk, or at least like be on a stage at some point with a microphone.
I'm trying to think. I know a lot of people who got press passes to conferences, you know, just off of like, type immediate situation thing. I don't know anybody who's been able to talk their way, who would talk this poorly about technology. Yeah. Who would be able to talk their way into getting up on the stage. Yeah. Like, how did you get?
I mean, basically, like to get in, you just need to get on the the email list once. And then they like just contact you every year. So like once you get in, it's not that big. But to like put it on your CV.
Like I did some talks that I talked my way into.
Yeah.
In Georgia. And like none of it was am I proud enough of to put on my resume. I've done some like television appearances
Ooh,
that I wouldn't tell anybody about.
others are nine.
No, talking public access. No,
Oh, cute.
there's no reason I should have been there.
Oh, God, you told me
And I
that,
feel
but
right
with your father, right?
about
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
we did a little bit of public
Mm.
access television work, and it's like there's no reason to have me in this room. I shouldn't
But
be here.
that's technically a media career. You did it more than once. That's a career.
Made a living off it. That whole evening where it cost me money technically. Yeah, no, I wouldn't call myself a professional like TV analyst. Just, oh man, that was not on the website. That was a direct action.
Hmm.
This right here, direct action
Yep.
at a UN conference
Hmm.
that paid off 4 years later with a neoliberal Obama policy. Gotcha.
But they've done that, and that's done, and now they can move on to the Greta Thunberg support
On the
network.
website.
Yep.
On the website.
Yep.
We made it. Where?
We put a sentence on our website that's probably gonna ping really well with Google, so we might actually have some people getting on our website. So
And the website is all just in like Microsoft Paint. Basically, it's like the most basic. Done. Get Squarespace.
hmm
You're a 37-year-old organization. Look at that website, dude. Why would you still post on that?
yeah.
I would burn this. I would have to like create an LLC
Mhm.
to purchase like the website from myself. Be like, oh well, we rescued the name of this organization off that other deadbeat. Just con your way through.
Oh, this is amazing.
I wonder if he wrote a book. Is that the conference?
Oh, do we actually have his name or any actual name?
Nope.
Come on.
No, he's a faceless organization. That somehow got into this conference. With what budget? Who flew you there? Maybe, did you drive? Are you like, there was a protest at one of these. Were you a protester?
Mm.
Oh, maybe he was a protester.
That
He
might-
protested at that. I don't think that you can write down every protest that you went to
Nope.
as a direct action. As I recall, most of these were not disruptive. As I recall, there wasn't like an issue pretty much globally with the Paris Accords.
Hmm.
I mean, there was the right wing, like, you
Of
know,
course,
whole
yeah.
political movement.
Yeah,
that came, but like, there was no like disruptive protest, was there?
I don't think so.
I don't remember like a
Uh,
group breaking in and throwing red paint everywhere or
No,
anything like
no.
that.
I mean, I remember a lot of think pieces about how it's too much and not enough, and like too green and not green enough. But like, nope. Demonstrations,
Like
no.
how far can we push it? Like
Yeah.
how many years do we really have?
And maybe
Well,
it's
we
not going to
really
be
don't have
that
any.
bad. So why?
Yeah, and there's another leap because like the end of the Paris Accord thing
Mhm.
happens, and then like 2018, Trump takes America out of the Paris Accords. Greta Thunberg is amazing. What are you doing on the news that you have no idea where the environmental movement's been at
Hmm.
since the Paris Accord
Yeah.
ended? Like, how do you not know where the discourse is? He hasn't done anything.
Nope.
So you went to the UN, and then Trump got elected, and that just sort of crushed your entire direct action platform. Cool, great org, dude. What's the point of this? Oh, degrowth.
Also, I mean, you know, this organization is 40 years old, so if he's a founding member, he might be like in his 60s by now, so maybe he's just tired. Maybe he just took a nap.
Rocking chair.
Yeah.
Made that manifesto, gonna marks it out now. I'll be famous in no time.
Or maybe somewhere in the like hills of Finland, Norway, just going full Kaczynski. Who knows?
Yeah, 100%. That's more likely. Yep. He's the Norwegian. I was going to include him on the list of readings for this week's subject.
Yeah.
But I thought, honestly, this one's bad enough. I think next time we can get into something a little bit more healthy.
Yes.
I like Bookchin.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. So maybe that, because unlike most people, I have read all of the theory. Probably,
wow.
I think genuinely. Like not every individual work, but of all of the political philosophies in great detail, enough that I can identify the difference between mutualist fascism and neoliberal fascism, which is, I boiled it down to one word. This is specific, but I've done this for all of the ideologies, and I like Bookchin's a lot.
Yeah.
I like his framework. It's very healthy. It doesn't imply some of the hardline moralist arguments, and it's not so ridiculously regressive as this like fascism, straight up ANCAP neo-libertarian UN policy. Yeah, but it does a good job of like balancing those two to create like a healthy, compromising move.
Didn't we start the eco-anarchist thing to like get into more healthy theory after all the eco-fascism? Yeah. That kind of went off the rails, I feel.
It just so happened that I found some eco-fascism and I couldn't not bring it up.
Of course.
And it just so happened that I was like, oh, there was like a theory reason behind this. So like, yeah, I wanted, next time maybe we'll talk about Bookchin instead. Nice. And we'll be like, yeah, this is great, and he says this well. We're going to avoid Chomsky. He's an eco-fascist.
Him as well? Jesus.
Well, no. He's a syndicalist. Which to me sounds a whole lot like fascism. But like, I'm far out there. Admittedly. I'm too anarchist for the anarchists.
Oh.
Yeah, edgy.
Edge.
Yep. Degrowth.
Optimal population.
Like, okay. Holy cow. How are you on here talking about degrowth and like animal rights is beyond the pale?
Yeah. Like they're gonna decide what the optimal population is, but let's not talk about the animals. That's too far. Come on.
Oh goodness gracious. It's a great piece.
It's brilliant.
Bookchin probably be funny. Which is another reason I wanted to slide this in here. It's so bad you can't help but laugh at it. Sorry, I'm just stuck on one of the practically significant anarchy. Yeah. There's this whole like anarchy without principles meme. Can you imagine if you came up to them with like, I have not one prefix, but two prefixes to add to your anarchism. Practically and significant.
Significant.
Like, wait a minute.
Yes.
Those are qualifications. More than 50%. Wait a minute.
What?
Are we less than 50% right now?
We're not, none of that theoretically frivolous anarchism. We are practical.
which means we eat meat, we exploit the global south.
And we impose non-governmental taxes. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to dig up potatoes with our bare fucking hands.
On the plane of the market. Like you're just gonna starve the workers. Okay.
Oh, cool.
This is practically significantly more accurate or more anarchist. Okay. Just slightly 50% more horizontal than vertical. We don't get as rich. Wait a minute. Oh. Well, obviously, this is all relative. Relative to what? Relative to what it could have been. Wait a minute. There used to be a bunch of organizations. Now it's just the union. Like, how is this better in any way? Well, we own everything. Oh. So it's horizontal. At the top.
Yep.
Just one flat plane at the top and everyone else starts. Come on, guys.
Debate me. What? Debate me. Come on.
Debate me. But you got this more reasonable. $150 tax. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oil tax. Yeah. $150 a barrel. What? It's double the price, dog. What? What do you mean?
We're also going to tax rain.
America would invade the whole planet.
Yeah.
You know you win. That would be the Senate. You spoke at a Senate committee hearing. Oh my god. It's terrible. I love it.
Oh god,
yeah. It's terrible.
It's brilliant.
Quick Tip, much better.
Much not as funny.
Though. Not as funny. He was funny in some videos. If you watch videos of him talk, he's a very entertaining talker. One of the greats. He's got like a very New York accent.
Oh.
And it just makes everything that he's saying that's so impossibly reasonable sound just like, duh, stupid. And I'm like, oh, dude, I love it.
Brilliant.
But usually he writes like 300-page books and not like 6 rambling eco-fascist manifestos. It's a union. Technically, this is eco-mutualist fascist. Jesus. I love it.
Oh god, yeah.
This was one of the things that cemented, or one of the trends that I discovered, this Finnish one, that cemented in me the idea that, like, okay, well, definitely then the state is also inherently fascist. Because if this guy can make a union that's fascist, like, there's no way not to make a state fascist. Like, it's part of the function.
Yeah.
So, I love that. I remember reading this and listening to the Edward Snowden interview on Joe Rogan.
Oh wow. that's like triple
was,
bro.
This is the visual. It was trippy. It was like, you know, because you say to Edward Snowden when he's describing surprise at just exactly how abusive the U.S. government was being, right? And like, we weren't actually, like, our democracy, we weren't a part of the government. You're like, I've been reading Bakunin for 20 years. It was brutal. Yeah. So you have to, when you're reading that, all you're thinking about is, obviously, this is all inherently terrible. Like, of course it is.
Yeah.
And then you read that and you're like, wait a minute. These guys are proposing the same thing, but a union. Like, frustrating.
Yeah.
Liberalism.
Mm,
fun.
mm. Great.
It's not neoliberal. It's mutualist. It's still technically fascism.
Mm,
But like, yeah, I don't think this guy understands that the market, sort of like the state, is like
mm.
rotten literally at its core.
Yeah.
And everything that comes from a market is fascist.
Mm.
Like it has to yeah. I said the same thing to Edward Snowden. This guy's no more reasonable than Edward Snowden, whose parents were both cops, I think is what he said in that interview.
Mm.
And he'd been a career cop for hire, which is like the worst kind of cop. And not just a cop for hire, he was a spook for hire, completely bought in to the whole thing. I bet you he would he'd love this.
Oh God, yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. No, see, it's scientific. None of that hippy-dippy stuff. It's scientific. That means it's
Listen,
good because
scientifically-
scientifically, everything that's scientific is good.
Yeah, so like I imagine, right, if he was involved in WikiLeaks, right? Like so WikiLeaks, we distinctly know is working with the fascist Russian government, okay? Right? So basically you're selling this dirt to the Russians because it is significantly more practical to distribute the information. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
Super.
I bet you he would love this. This
Oh,
makes
yeah.
sense to him.
Yeah, no, totally.
It is significantly more fair to do it this way. Okay. But do you know how much influence the Russians got in American politics off of like Edward Snowden's leaks? Like when they happened and how they happened and who they happened to? Like, okay, the timing of this put literal fascists like in power. Like WikiLeaks was very significant.
Yeah.
In like putting a very fascist in the White House. But it's significantly more practical. Oof, man, that's a big call. I guess for one person to do it on their own principles, I guess.
No.
But like also at the same time, I Trump. And like, I don't know. This is tough.
No, absolutely.
This is why you can't use more.
Hello? You just cut. Oh. Doop, doop. Hi, sorry, lost you for a second.
Yeah, I think we might have hit the 2-hour mark.
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
How lovely.
Brilliant.
It's been a great talk.
Yeah, that was fun.
Happy morning.
Yep.
Waking up every other day to some eco-fascism.
Really puts a spring in your step for the rest of the day.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
I'll see you next time.
All right, bye.